Hi everybody, this is my second lecture for Excel badge number 3, and I explained the VLOOKUP function and how useful it is when you have a very large amount of data organized, and I promised you after the initial lecture that I would give you a demonstration. So this is an extract from what those of you who have studied accounting know as a sales ledger. Okay, if you have not studied accounting, this is a group of data based on bills that we send to our customers as we sell them our goods and services. Okay? Now what I'm going to do is, normally this is in invoice order. We put these in numerical order. I've taken them out of order while I put together this lesson for us. So I'm going to put them back in order, smallest to largest. Okay? So all of this data is just how you would see it in a so-called sales journal. Every time we issue a bill to our customers, and we, as you can see, we have some customers we deal with over and over again, we're going to list it here as an accounting control. Now, let's assume, we've only got about 20 items here, but let's assume that we have 2,000 items. VLOOKUP is very handy to look for key data in a large database such as this. So, I've given you 3 examples down here that we will look at. First assumption, you want to look up who the customer is on a certain invoice, 3035. A customer calls you on the weekend, leaves a message. I have a problem with my invoice, 3035. Click, bang, they're irate. They don't give you any information to get back to them. So the first thing you want to do is look up invoice number 3035 and then know who to call. So what we're going to do is use VLOOKUP to see who it is. Here's what we do using the rules that we outlined yesterday in lecture number 1. Of badge number 3. We type in VLOOKUP. Now you remember we have to give it 3 parameters. We call them arguments, we call them conditions. Okay, I'm going to click on VLOOKUP in that nice little drop down that Excel gives us. You can see underneath it's giving us the parens, it's giving us space for the arguments. Excel is so cooperative in that sense, but it's also prompting us for the 3, sometimes 4 arguments that you use for the VLOOKUP function. I told you the 4th one is optional, okay? So let's work on the 4th one later. Let's look at the first 3 that are required right now. The first one is lookup value. So we want to look up who the customer is on invoice 3035. That's your information right there. The lookup value is 3035. We separate our arguments with commas, so I type a comma. The second argument, as you can see, is highlighted right now in that drop-down, is the table array. That simply means the destination, the place where you want this function to go do your searching. So I'm going to use the mouse. I'm going to come up here, and we always want to use the leftmost column as our reference, and that column must be sorted, okay, as our key. So I'm going to come up here to the top left. I'm going to left-click and hold, and highlight this whole array. That is my table array. Down to the lower right. Scroll back down and you see that Excel has very kindly placed the values B70 through E86 there for us. So I hit another comma. And my third argument, and that's the final argument for now, we'll get to the 4th one later, is column index number. Now that I've looked up the value 3035, somewhere in that zone B70 to E86, what do? Well, I want to know who the customer is. So, if we're keying on column B, that's column reference 1 in this VLOOKUP command, I'm looking at column C. That's where I want to retrieve my data from. That therefore becomes column 2. Okay, we're going to do this 1, 2, 3, 4. We're always going to be looking at assigning some numeric value to the columns based on the column that we are indexing upon. So since we're looking up the customer number, we're going to choose number 2. Okay, I'm just going to hit enter. Bam, there it is. You want to look up who the customer is? It is Fullwood, invoice 3035. Yes, it is indeed Fullwood. It worked. Okay. Very good. Now, I took the same customer. You want to know how much Fullwood owes you on their latest invoice. All right, very good. How much is it? Again, assume you have a massive database here of 2,000 numbers. You don't want to go searching through all of that. We're going to let VLOOKUP do the heavy lifting for us. So once again, I type equals sign, I type VLOOKUP. All right, and from the drop-down, I'm going to select VLOOKUP. The lookup value, all right, I want to know forward on their latest invoice. So I want to stop right there. Since I'm looking up a customer, I want to stop. I'm not concerned about invoice anymore. I'm concerned about customer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight by left-clicking and dragging all of these customer names. I want those in alphabetic order. Okay, these are not numbers now. These are alpha. These are text entries. So I'm going to click way up here in the upper right on Sort and Filter, Sort A to Z. And all of my customers, we've done all this sorting before, so I'm blowing right by that quickly. All of our customers are now in alphabetical order. That has to be done before I use VLOOKUP. Now I come back down here, equals sign, VLOOKUP. I select from the drop-down. And now I'll put in my three values: lookup value, table array, and column index number. Lookup value is going to be forward. Now be careful, don't just type forward. Or you're going to get an error message. You have to type in quote forward because it is a text, an alpha entry. Make sure you put it in quotes. If you don't do that, then the value will come back to you with like a little hashtag and name, which is Excel's way of saying, I don't know what it is you want because you didn't phrase it to me properly. So now forward is my search key. I'm going to type a comma. And now my second value is the table array. Now it's going to be just like before, ladies and gentlemen, but this time, forget about the invoice number. I want to start with cell C70, the upper left of the column that I've keyed on. That's going to be my leftmost column. I left click and drag, hold, and scroll down until I've highlighted everything to the lower right. Release the mouse button. There it is. I've now highlighted my range. And now let's look at this. The customer name becomes column 1. I want the amount. That's column E. Therefore, that's not 2. It is 3. So I'm going to type a 3 right there. Yes, 3. And I hit enter. And it looks like Fullwood owes me $1,200. Yes, that is indeed the value, $1,200. We've used VLOOKUP successfully. The third and final example I will show you is you have a customer called Darian. There they are. All right, you don't know where they are. And you say to yourself, I want to know how much they owe you on my latest invoice, but I don't exactly remember how to spell their name. Is there one R? Or are there two R's in the name? Oh, okay. Now this is where the fourth condition comes in, as we learned in our last lecture. This program, Excel, is going to assume that unless you specify to the contrary, that you always want a close match. So let's see if it works. So I already have my customers in order, so I don't have to reorder anything. That's exactly what I want. So I'm going to type in equals sign VLOOKUP, and I'm going to select the function right there. And my lookup value is Darian, but now this is the problem. I don't know how to spell him. D-A-R-R-I-E-N? I think so. Oh, did I make a mistake? Yes, I forgot my quotes. That is an alpha string, so I have to put quote. Okay, now I'm going to type in my comma. I'm going to highlight my range, starting with top left to lower right. Ignore the invoice numbers because I'm searching based on the customer name right now. And I scroll back down, and now I type in a comma, and I say, all right, if my customer name is column 1, I don't want 2, that's the zip code, I want column 3, I type in 3. Now please remember that my default is true. That means I'll come close. $4,700. Yes, friends, there it is. Darian owes us $4,700. Okay, on that topic, okay, Now, we assume that the fourth condition defaults to true. It's not an assumption, actually. That is the case. The ranged lookup is assumed to be true. It stays 4700. If you type nothing for the fourth argument, it assumes true. So either way, leave it blank, type true, you're going to get Darian's value. But now let's assume that you wanted an exact match. Okay? If I type in, instead, I'm going to come up to the formula bar and type in false. Now Darian is not an exact match anymore. Not applicable. It's saying to you, I looked through the whole database and I didn't find anything spelled D-A-R-R-I-E-N. Okay, so that's what that fourth condition does for you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to back out of that and leave it the way it was. Okay, very good. Now the final thing, I have a few minutes left, I'm going to show you. In my series of lectures for badge number 3, I'm going to be talking about higher level functions, and I try to pick the most useful ones from both a scholastic and a business point of view. So another one that came to my mind recently is the weighted average. Now, you know that how averages work. Generally speaking, if you add up some numbers and then divide by the number of those numbers that you have, that's called a simple average. Okay, sometimes, however, you want to take those numbers and assign a weight, importance to them. I want to give more weight to this value than another value. Okay? Now, as I noted here in this yellow zone, the weighted average function is useful in accounting, finance, my finance classes, certainly statistics, Dr. Fishbein's stat courses, and naturally mathematics. But here's the thing, it's also how probably most of your professors calculate your grade. So they say, I'm going to give you this, 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 and this as gradable items, but they're not all graded equally, okay? Some will be given more consideration than others, and that's called a weight. So a weighted average is much more useful. So I put some numbers down here. Now, I write a syllabus in a course I'm about to teach, and I have 5 things I will grade you upon. And out of 100%, you score on my midterm exam 80, on my 2 projects a 90 and an 87. Class participation, I give you a 90, and final, you score an 82. Now, I send you a grade at the end of the semester, and it's not what you expect, because you might say it's a simple average. Okay, so I'm going to take the sum of those 5 grades. Let's sum them up this way. No, let's use the function itself. Okay, let's get rid of that. Let's come up here to the upper right, auto sum. I click on that, and I'm going to highlight those 5 values, and then I divide that by 5 because there are 5 of them. Let's try that again. Divided by 5. All right, you might say, Professor, I expected an 86, and you didn't give me an 86. You gave me something lower. What went wrong? I would say to you, well, you based it on a simple average. You took all those scores and added them up and divided by 5. It doesn't work that way because, to me, certain items are much more important than others. Okay? So all of these have to add up to 100%. So I assigned 25%, you notice I put 0.25, to your midterm and to your final. I count those for more. And you didn't do as well as you did on project number 1 and number 2. And you really had great class participation, you just didn't bring it when it came to the exams. So in my grading, I would give you a weighted average. Now here's how it works, friends. I'm going to take each one of your grades, I'm going to multiply it by its weight, just like that. And I'm going to take all of those, add them together, and that is how your professor calculates a weighted average. I would return a grade to you of 84.9% when you calculated an 86. Okay? Let's call it an 85.8. All right. So you saw how I just did a weighted average. Now, a nice function that Excel gives you is called sum product. That's going to allow you to do in one simple step what I just did for you in a couple. Let's see how it works. So I want to come up with a weighted average of all of this data here for you. Sum product. Okay, so I'm going to hit equal sign, sum. Okay, now I start typing sum and right away, look at the drop down. Excel is going to say, do you want these calculations? I'm going to choose the one I want, sum product. All right. I have to give it two things, friends. I have to give it my grades, and then I have to give it my weights. It's going to take each item multiplied by the weight like we did way up here, okay? And it's going to add them together for me in one step. So first, my first argument. That's my first argument. They call it array number 1. I am going to hit a comma and give it my second array, D114 through D118. It's that easy. I hit enter now. And what do I get? I'm going to give it 2 more decimal places. Look at that. There's my 84.9. So instead of doing all of this calculation up here, I have it in one step. And you know what's even better? Is now you have a way to check your math. Now if you're doing a statistical project for Dr. Fishbein, you have a way of checking your numbers before you submit a project to him or to your other professors, like Professor Kelly in accounting, Dr. Shaw, Professor Barry. Any of us who require weighted average calculations, you now have a really neat gadget. Okay, now is one more thing. And I want you to think about this. And when I'm coming up with weights in my syllabus, I've made these mistakes myself. Whenever you assign weights, they have to add up to 100%. If you add up all of these values, they will equal 100, or they'll equal 100%, they will equal 1 mathematically. Same thing. Okay, and of course, whenever you divide something by 1, you're going to get the number itself. Okay, now, what if you have assigned all these weights and you make a mistake, and project number 1, you happen to hit 25%, okay? And now these numbers are not going to add up to 100% anymore, okay? There's a really nice little gimmick that is provided to you by Excel. Now watch how I do this. I'm going to take, I made a spelling error there on line 141, I will correct that shortly. Okay, now if you want Excel to be very forgiving, what you can actually do is you can type in sum product, and we're going to do just like we did before. I'm going to give it array number 1. Okay. I'm going to type in a comma and give it array number 2. This is the same thing I did before. All right. I'm going to close the parens. Now if I stop there, I would get the same number. Okay? If I had not changed that 0.2 to 0.25. But now my numbers don't add up to 100% anymore. They add up to 105%, don't they? Well, Excel is going to redistribute those weights for you if I do this. I'm going to type in sum, parens, and I'm going to sum up all of these numbers, which we know will equal 105 now, not 100. And I'm going to show you, if I add 2 decimal places, that I get 85.14%. Okay? So now, let's assume that I come back up here and do all this math again. You're going to find, and I will prove this to you, I will put my proof up here, okay? I'm going to take 80, hold on, I can do it this way. I'm going to take 20%, Hi, sorry for that interruption. I'm going to prove the 8514 to you by redoing my numbers up here. Okay, so if all of my weights don't add up to 100%, Excel is going to be very forgiving. So let's prove that by saying, let's take, I could do it several ways, but let's take the 20% and let's multiply that times 105 divided by 100. I'm changing the basis of my calcs. I'm sorry, I did that backwards, didn't I? All right, let's try that again. Okay, 20% divided by 105 divided by 100. All right, I'm going to add 2 decimal places. I'm going to replicate that down. Okay, now I'm so sorry. Let's undo that. I'm having a few problems here. Replicating. All right, bear with me 1 second. Excel is being a little cantankerous for me right now. Again, divided by 1.05. I'm not sure why this is happening, but I'm just going to do it the hard way if I have to. Divided by 1.05. I will figure out what's going on here later on, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so those are all my numbers. And if you watch the formulas, you'll see what's happening. I'm restating everything from being 100% to 105%. Okay, those are the numbers I get, and if I sum them, I get 8514, and the number I'm looking for is 8514. My point, okay, if you make a mistake and these numbers do not add up to 100%, then what's going to happen is some product, Excel, is going to force them to be reproportioned for you so they do equal 100%, okay? If you have any questions about my math, please feel free to write to me. Again, you all know my address by now. It is asadams@dean.edu. And my apologies, I'm not sure why that wouldn't replicate, but thank you for your patience in watching me do it the hard way. All right, I'll give that a little highlight for you. That's it for our lecture today. So please study this thoroughly. I will be posting a quiz very soon. And before that, I will do 1, possibly 2 more lectures on some of the more advanced topics that will lead you to badge number 3. In the meantime, have yourself a great weekend. Bye-bye.